Hey you, do you always forget deadlines and think you have
all the time in the world?
and then you look at the calendar and you think, holy carp. What you mean is carp. Don't worry, we have you covered with Holy Carp merch that ends tomorrow. You heard me? Tomorrow is the last day. Comes in t-shirts, hoodies, and mugs, and yes, stickers, as well as towels and pillows. Limited edition, signed version. After that, it will not be signed anymore. Links in the description box, iCard section, as well as the pinned comment.
Cause when you're a grain, you come in like a hurricane.
Hey Grains, if you're anything like me, that means you're a curious little fella, aren't they? Burb agrees, and you know what happens if you don't listen to Burb? He'll just leave, because he's not confrontational. Which is a big lie! He is so confrontational! Right? That's abuse! Why are you hitting me? And last week I asked you Grains if you wanted to see a comparison from a brand name to the Dollar Store paint markers, that we should reach 15,000 likes. And lo and behold, we've reached practically 25,000 likes. That is crazy. Right, Burb? He can be rude sometimes, but he's generally speaking a nice person. Oh no! That's a hit and run! Why? Are you done? He's a big liar. And so today we're going to be doing exactly that. We're going to be testing out Posca Pens with their direct competitors and see how both of them fare against the Dollar Store Daiso brand. In the last video, so many of you said that Posca were a little too expensive, so wait until you see juice paint. Juice paint is actually slightly more expensive. If you're in the market for Posca Pens and you get a set of 16 markers, you will spend around $2.56 per marker. Whereas if you're going to buy a set of the juice paint, they're going to cost you about $2.83 per marker in a set. And then for the Postila pens, it's only gonna cost you $1 each. So, you know you're stealing my show? Are you done? You said you were done last. He's hitting me right now. By the way, for those of you who haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you do, otherwise I'm going to take a marker and draw a duck on your face. Is that what you want? So make sure you click subscribe and that little bell, and you have to be sure to click on all notifications, otherwise it will only put you as occasional. And so the first thing I did was decide to divide my paper so that we can see all three colors and from all three brands right next to each other. For those of you who don't know, Posca Pens, juice paint, and the Dollar Store ones are supposed to be paint markers. If you want a really in-depth review of Posca Pens, I'll leave the link for that one in the description box below, so feel free to watch that after this video. And the idea behind these pens is that there's a bunch of paint in here, and you gotta keep shaking until you get the most opaque version of that color. So,
a few moments later. More moments later.
we're going to be starting by putting the Posca Pens first because they're going to be our base. They are the most known brand, which means that the other two really technically should be comparing to this one. And as you can see, the paint is opaque. The marker is so juicy. I love juicy markers. And the other thing you should know is that the colors that come out of the Posca Pens practically match perfectly the colors on the cap, which means that is another thing we're going to be looking at. So as you can see on the white paper, the Posca Pens are extremely vibrant, they go down pretty juicy, and they're pretty opaque. And I have to say again that the colors match the caps just so. And then once we look at the black paper, if you don't shake or pump, the liquid just won't come out. So you can see the difference between the red streaks and the tiny little red rectangle on the side. Same thing with the other two colors. But generally speaking, Posca Pen on black paper is usually pretty successful with one coat. And now for our next supply, Juice Paint by Pilot Pen. Pilot is one of those brands that most of us at some point had a ballpoint pen from them, or a mechanical pencil. They're a brand that's been around for the longest time ever. So when I saw that these juice paints were everywhere, right next to the Posca Pens in Japan, I don't think they've really made their way to North America just yet. Maybe I'm wrong, so for those of you who want to say,
"But Janky, you're saying it wrong."
Stop it! Stop. Just stop it. So I went ahead and bought this set of 12 colors. So we're going to compare them directly to the other two. Let's get first impressions. So here are the Juice Paint Marker Paint. Wow, I cannot talk today, not today. No wordies coming out of talkie. So first impression is that they seem very elementary. And I don't mean elementary school, I just mean basic. Compared to the design and colorfulness of the outside of the Posca Pens, the Juice Paints seem very simple. And I'm not saying simple is bad. It just feels a little less decorated for a marker that costs more than Posca Pens. In addition to that, the shape is hexagonal, I believe. There's six sides. Wow. And it does feel a little chunkier to hold. Not to mention, it's also much shorter than the Posca Pen. Again, I'm not saying just because it's shorter and chunkier that it's not better. I just have more expectations because it does cost more. Then again, maybe it's what's on the inside that counts. Dear Pilot Juice Paint, please do not disappoint me. I have much hope for you. Much hope. Now, before we go on any further, we have to shake. Let's try and hear the difference in the sound. Oh! It feels like whatever marble is in here is way bigger.
Five minutes later.
So the aim of this marker is to make sure you really do have to make sure that you shake the stuff out of it. So when you get these kinds of markers, you will notice that the tips are not activated. So you have to pump it a few times until the liquid comes out, until the juice paint comes out. And with Posca Pens, it generally took anywhere between 10 and 12 to start the activation. So let's go ahead with 10. Nothing yet? Alright, so here we go after 20 pumps, and you can see the paint is starting to come down. Another thing I noticed while I was just waiting for the paint to come down is, since I want the paint to kind of make its way towards the tip, stop! Just get your mind out of the gutter. Is that while I'm doing that for the Posca Pens, usually I could just leave the marker standing up and the paint can make its way down to the nib. But when it comes to the Pilot design, the bottom part of the cap is actually kind of I forgot. Oh my god, I can't remember the word. It's like this. It's slightly curved. That's the word.
Wow.
So the bottom part of the cap is actually curved. So even if you want it to stand, it's not. It's just going to lean onto one side and fall on there because it's a curve. So by now, the paint has made its way all the way down. Let's see what it looks like on black paper. And it definitely feels a lot less juicy. What's going on, Juice Paint? Just let's show the difference again. Here's Juice Paint, and here's Posca. I didn't shake this one, by the way. And just by looking at the Posca Pen 1, even though I didn't shake it, you can see that there's a lot more juiciness coming out of the tip. You're just gonna have to bear with me. We're working with markers here. It's all tips and juice. So I'm going to shake both, and let's do another test again to see if it gets a little juicier. This time a little more opaque. And Posca Pen again. And it still feels a lot juicier. Even though I went over it again, it just still feels quite juicy. Remember, we are testing it on black paper. But most people tend to use it on lighter colored paper, so let's go ahead and do it on white right next to the Posca version. And right away I can tell you that the nib feels a lot stiffer, so it is eating at the paper a lot more. You can see little fibers starting to tear, whereas on the Posca version it seems to have gone down a lot more smoothly. And here they are side by side. Let's swatch the rest of the colors. I have to admit, I am pretty annoyed because the caps, again, are curved at the bottom. I have to lay them flat as I'm activating them, which means that I've done so far about 30 to 40 pumps on each one, and they still haven't reached all the way to the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and place them in here and wait for them to activate all the way down. I don't want to over-activate them either. All right, so as I'm shaking this marker, it seems that the nib was coming out quite easily, and this is putting almost no pressure whatsoever. But then I decided to test it out with the Posca Pens, and it's actually quite similar. The nibs come out very easily, but, very big but. I would have never noticed that with the Posca Pens because these ones are much looser, which means that just by shaking them inside the cap, they were getting loose. So that is also another minus. How are these markers way more expensive? Oh, let's keep going. Let's just keep going. Maybe there are good things about this. So as I'm using the markers, it does of course feel like paint. It is opaque, the colors are pretty vibrant, but just something feels off. I had a bigger impression that I was coloring with the markers that we're used to coloring, kind of like when we're kids, you know, the water-based ones, rather than feeling like I was coloring with paint. So I feel like these markers probably have a higher water to paint ratio versus Posca Pens, who has a proper blend of both. One of the other interesting parts is that the caps and the colors that come out of it do indeed match, so that is of course a bonus. So far, even though on paper they seem like they're quite similar, the Posca and Juice Paint, the pen-to-hand feel is a completely different experience. I really do feel like the Posca Pens seem to flow better, and the colors they're juicier. They're juicier than Juice Paint. And I feel like it was a lot easier to cover strokes with Posca Pens than it is with Juice Paint so far. But we have a third challenger. The Dollar Store version. Let's check them out because I'm actually pretty excited about these. And here we are with the Dollar Store brand. I was only able to find 7 colors, so naturally I took them all. The interesting thing, I know my hair, oh my god. The interesting thing about the Dollar Store brand is that they obviously look like they're mimicking Posca Pens, because even the colors on the actual font are different. They're interchanging. So I thought it was pretty neat that they're trying to mimic the same format. When it comes to the feel of this, it does feel Dollar Store-ish. Here the plastic has a very soft velvety feel, whereas this one, it's a hard plastic. Time for the shake test. Posca, Juice Paint, Postila. They're similar. When did this become my job? Another interesting thing about the Postila pens is that they are the same size as the Posca Pens. And just to show you the difference, the Juice Paint is smaller and bulkier. All right, so let's pump some of that Postila pen. And let's do a quick test on the nib removal for the Postila. And again, they are quite removable, but it does seem a little more firm, but we'll confirm that later. Time to do a couple of pumps. So already at 12 pumps, we're getting results. Oh, and by the way, good news. Remember the issue we had with Juice Paint not standing? Well, Postila decided to mimic again Posca Pens and make sure that the pens can stay vertical. Thank you very, very much for that. Let me pump them all. All right, are we ready for Postila first impression? And it is... Oh, whoa, hey, yeah, hey, whoa. On the black paper, it feels the same as both Posca Pen and Juice Paint, except that it's actually juicier than the most expensive marker, which is Pilot Juice Paint. So far, I'm pretty impressed with this. Let's try it on white paper. So over here is the expensive marker, Juice Paint. Over here is the Posca Pen, and let's scribble Postila. What in the world? All right, so this here is the Juice Paint. You can see that it has a little bit more water because it's tearing the paper a little more, whereas the Posca Pen is not tearing the paper as much as the previous one. Just look at the little smudges over there. And then the Dollar Store one is less streaky, more juicy than the first one. It still has a little more water than Posca Pens, but it's prettier than the Juice Paint. So the Dollar Store one, so far, is better than the most expensive one in this set. So as I'm coloring with the Dollar Store paint markers, I am stumped. I am extremely surprised because a lot of these colors are coming down very juicy and very opaque. Make no mistake though, they are more watery. There's a little bit more water because I can see it in the back of the paper where it's starting to get a little soggy. But just looking at the difference between the Posca Pens, the Dollar Store, and the Juice Paint, there's not that much difference. In terms of pigments and paint, I can definitely tell and feel that the Posca paints are definitely higher quality. Whereas the Dollar Store and Juice Paint, I honestly feel like there is no worth in getting the Juice Paint whatsoever. So even though one is more expensive and the other one's way cheaper, the cheaper one has way better results. That's counterintuitive, but Dollar Store in this case definitely wins. But wait, I have a piece of wood. Let's test all three of them on this. And we're going to be doing this in order of, this time, cheap to expensive. So let's start with Dollar Store, then Posca, then Juice Paint. So far as our base colors go down, the Dollar Store one is way more saturated. Now we're going to wait and see what it's going to look like once it dries and we start layering the colors on top of the other. Since we didn't get any white in either the Pilot Juice Paint nor the Postila, I don't even know what I'm about. We're going to be using yellow for the eyes, the outer circle, and then a dark blue for the inner iris thingamabob. Don't judge me! I don't know eye anatomy very well. And right off the bat, the Dollar Store one layers very nicely. The yellow is a little more translucent than the Dollar Store one. It's translucent compared to the Dollar Store one. That is crazy. So from what we can tell on these cute little blobby monsters is that it does take the Posca pen just a little longer to dry. That's why there was some leakage from the blue to the yellow. Posca pens behaved exactly as I expected them to, and the Juice Paints just seem a lot more dull compared to the Dollar Store one. Let's make little circles on plastic. Whoa! Whoa! Okay, that is just one layer from the Postila pen, and it's extremely opaque. Posca time. A little streaky, but it's okay. Still nothing compared to the Dollar Store one. And Juice Paint. So if we bring these a little closer, I feel like the Posca pen is the one that performed the least ideal, and the Dollar Store one, holy carp. Yeah, most definitely yeah. Dollar Store one on metal. Wow, one coat, super juicy. Posca. One coat, super juicy. Juice Paint. One coat, super juicy as well. And let's try one more surface, which is going to be a white piece of cloth, because many of you grains said that I should try it on light colored cloth as opposed to dark, like the last video. Here's Postila, and let's do a cute little heart. Very opaque, very colorful. Posca, still opaque, still colorful. And Juice Paint, still pretty cute. So now the biggest question. We tried Dollar Store, mid-tier, which is Posca, and then slightly more expensive competitor, Juice Paint. Which one is the most worth it? And in my honest opinion, the Dollar Store one seemed to have outperformed, in some cases, the Posca pens. So I feel like if you really don't want to buy Posca pens because maybe they're out of your budget and you're not even sure if it's something you would enjoy, if you do see the Postila pens, I'm having such a hard time saying it. I would definitely 100% recommend that you buy these ones as opposed to Posca pens. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that it is more watery, so it's going to take a little longer to dry. So that's the biggest downside. And also probably color choice. Juice Paint for me would definitely be something I would not recommend in its current state. There are just so many things that feel off, and the pen to hand feel is just not right. It just doesn't feel flowy like the other ones. I don't know why I took this voice. That's what I'm going with because I'm avoiding a cough. Don't forget, tomorrow is the last day to buy the merch, so the links will be in the description box below, iCard section, as well as in the pinned comment. If you want to watch the video where I review Posca pens in more detail, check it out up here. And if you want to watch a salty review, make sure you check it out down here. Until then, I will see you grains in the next video.